serious.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. We apologize for the delay, but we had a few technical difficulties, but we'd like to welcome you to the Committee of the Whole work session today, Tuesday, September 20th. And we're going live here about 10:35. So on our agenda, we have the minutes of our August 16th meeting of the Committee of the Whole. But those are unavailable right now. We have some staff that are out on leave, and so we will be getting those out for our next meeting. Today we're fortunate to have three presentations, and first on our agenda, we'd like to welcome Howard and Beth to present to us the Cook County Grand Marais Joint Economic Development Authority proposed budget for fiscal year 2023. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for the good support over the years for the EDA, and our new director Beth, and we're continuing to do good work, I think. So thank you for your support.
Yeah, I didn't get to do this last year, so I'm excited to answer your questions and provide the kind of accountability that we need to in order to do our next year of business. So thank you for this time. We're hoping to have a slide or two, maybe?
Yep.
There we go.
You probably don't have in your packets, but we do have a little slide. All right, so I don't know where to start, but I think that's why they do these slide things, is so that we do know where to start. If you remember, if you saw that first slide, you'll see that we've kind of not necessarily rebranded, but got a new logo and a new web page to kind of just make things a little bit easier. And so those haven't been widely publicized, but hopefully once the back end of the website is up, people will be able to go and apply right online and beep, 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 and they can apply for our grants, and then it'll be a streamlined process, which we have a little bit different of a process now where you have to print stuff out and get it to us, and so hopefully bring those things into the 21st century. So our budget request this year is $295,000, and you will notice that that's a 5.8% decrease from 2022. These are
5.8 or 15?
15.8%. 15.8. 5.8. Sorry, the number is right there. And I don't think any of this is really really surprising, because this HRA creation has been just like the biggest thing. I mean, a creation of a new entity here. So we're going to take away, we're not asking for the $100,000 in housing funding, because that'll go over to the HRA. But you won't see a full 100% decrease in our budget. And so hopefully I'll be able to shed light on some of the things that where we've seen price increases and need for additional cost here. We have allocated an extra $10,000 for business development. That's in addition to the usual $100,000, and so it'll be $110,000. Not allocated, I guess, or we are requesting. And that's bolstering our program. That's allowing us to possibly look at special initiatives, which the EDA hasn't specifically said they want this $10,000 to go towards childcare, but some of the programs that we are applying for, the DEED Economic Development Grant, those funds can be used as a match, and so the higher they are, the better chances we have of matching different funds. And so
In the whole business development program, funding has been, they don't come to us this year and then we'll put it in the budget and try to get some money from next year. They need the money now, so having that available has been really good. This last year, for instance, we took monies out of our development fund to fund the housing survey, for instance, in anticipation of HRA needing that. We wanted to jumpstart, since housing is the absolute most critical need in our community, we wanted to jumpstart and have that available for Jason when he started up. So, having a little, not taking away all the 100,000 from our request from last year into housing, we want to backfill our development account a little bit so we can respond to need when it comes.
Absolutely. In front of the board was a switch of auditing companies. I think we went with the same auditor that you're going with. So that we all knew that there was going to be an increase there of $3,000, and that will be coming in 2023. And so that's where some of that came from. And then the personnel committee was good with this 7.5% increase in staffing, cost of living, merit, possible merit, I should have put there, and step equivalent increases that we tried to kind of model after what the county does for their annual increase. And so if you have any questions there, both Ann and Howard are on the personnel committee, and I would defer to those for that one.
Yeah, we're in the process of both developing and then doing a annual performance review with Beth. So it kind of had to build us from the ground up since we haven't been doing that before. So,
And I can say to the board that the performance evaluation tool is designed to parallel what we use here at the county, so that we're looking at similar processes and procedures and getting input from all our board members, and also we'll be getting input from our director as well. It's a collaboration and a conversation about performance and about also how the board supports the growth of that position.
And so I'd love to take some questions on this slide. I do have some more supporting information if anybody has any questions, please.
So you say it's a 7.5% increase in staffing and cost of living.
Absolutely.
So last year the budget for staffing was 74.8. This year you've got on here 129. That's higher than a 7.5%.
well,
So this is a full-time position, and the former director was not full-time.
So it isn't just, okay.
I think, Commissioner, the number that you're quoting from last year, I think that's just salary, and I believe this number is salary.
Salary and benefits,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Salary and benefits and travel and training.
Well, I'm just going
If
off
you're
of the
seeing what you're seeing,
information you gave
absolutely.
me at the
Right.
EDA meeting last, and there
Yeah.
it says, director
I would-
with benefits. That-
I would love to clear that up. That's
Yeah.
not, if you're looking at some of our financials, we've had some issues with getting our financials, and that looks to be like something, it's not the request that I have in here has put in staffing on one line as my salary. The cost of that staffing from the county, as it's about $35,000.
Correct.
And then the $4,000 for travel and training. And over my first year in '21, that's what off of what I'm getting now, 223 was I kind of says is the staff approved a 7.5% increase. And so.
well, the board hasn't voted on that. I mean,
They haven't.
Right.
No, because we have to do the
Yeah.
performance review
Yeah.
first.
So the personnel committee
And so-
recommended a 7.5, but that will be reviewed at full board.
If you also did the math, commissioners, you would find that it doesn't add up to exactly 7.5% on that line item for staffing in the request, because I wanted to leave some room in there for what payroll and for anything that we didn't know was coming and things. So it doesn't line exactly perfect, but it's not going to be any more than.
Since we're under the county system with Beth, I mean, we're seeing the same increase as the county employees on the health side and other benefits. And of course, the big jump from last year, in the last years to now, I mean, Mary was part-time. She had her own benefit package, sort of, and, you know, I'm embarrassed to say we were probably undercompensating her too. So when we were looking for a new director in order to find a competent person, I mean, we had to jump up into a salary level that you know, makes sense in this society. And then actually added in the benefits. And, you know, thank you, James and Brady, you know, that handle that payroll function and get her into the county system so we can actually get her those benefits and compensate her correctly. So that's the big jump from the other years. And then, you know, 7.5 moving forward is an anticipated merit increase and kind of a first year move up from an introductory salary, because, you know, when you hire a new person, you know, you kind of shoot in a little low so you have room to move up, which I think we did, and then all the benefit side. So if that answers those questions.
So can you tell me how many hours was this budgeted for Mary? How many hours did you expect her to work, and what is the difference between what you're expecting? That's
So I think from 30 to 40, I guess, was a
Correct.
3/4 time with
Yep,
Mary.
it was 3/4 time.
And, you know, we abused her because I don't think she ever put 30 hours in. I mean, she did not constrain herself with her time, so.
right, and she was doing housing and business development. She was doing a lot.
She was doing a lot, yes.
And now we're taking away the housing because we have
Yeah.
an HRA.
Yep.
So my question is, for an extra $10,000, what's on your plan for business development? What more are we gonna get as a community for that extra $10,000, that an extra 10 hours a week that we didn't receive this last year?
Sure, I'd like to just, you know, I remind you that it's not quite $10,000, it's about $7,600. And so I padded that in there because of the cost of the payroll, like I said. And so I could tell you how much that is worth minus that much. I am taking the EDA from a pass-through kind of organization to an organization that has its own money to give grants out for. And so what we can do is the grants that we used to apply for, IRRB comes in for one person and it goes out. One person, one business, one organization, or something like that. So what I'm hoping to do is to be able to bring in these deed childcare funds, things like this, where we can apply for a grant for the community, for county businesses, for county organization, whatever those grant criteria are, and we can supplement what we have already in our levy from the county with these grant funds that we have through these grant programs that we have. Now, we already have a grant program, but there are no stages to it. There's no phases to it. There's people apply and it comes in and we give out money if they reach the thresholds. And so I'm hoping that we can do kind of a more concerted effort to have periods of time where we have the fall stage, right? People are looking towards the fall to get through the winter. What do you need to do this? The spring stage. What do you need to get your business going for the summer to get your business going? And so having two different kind of stages, main parts of doing that. And so building up the organization so that it can take a hit from different things and keep on giving is another thing. I have a couple of more slides that could help to see what exactly we are doing. But we'll be able to continue to, can we go one more?
Of course.
Thanks, James. We'll be able to continue to give out grants like this, but also this $50,000 grant that we gave to Sawbill Village is a multiple year project. And so I am really I'm not in the weeds with this project, but it's taking up at least 2-3 hours every week. And so by looking at it that way, when I'm applying for a deed grant, we're putting in 2 to 3 hours a week for me to work on that, right? We didn't do it with the Sawville Village grant because we didn't have the numbers and stuff. So since in the deed grant, we've been able to put in how much the EDA is putting in time. And so hopefully we'll be able to pay our way a little bit more so that we can grow the authority. And so in addition to all of the things that we already do with administering the grants, now not with housing, but with development, I'm going to be able to develop this program into something that can not quite support itself, but be able to give more to more people in the community by having a target for money, so a target pool of money so that we can give more. Please.
Can I just have a clarification? So what this I'm reading on the screen is what you've already done.
This is what we did in
okay. Not your plans for the future, but this is accomplished.
Yeah.
So, we don't, the past years, not last year, the year before, we kind of showed where we've leveraged our budget through grants from IRRB and other places. So, I mean, the impact of our budget is way exceeds the investment by the county. The last couple of years, I mean, we've been deep into the COVID stuff, the Tabor loans, some other projects like that are now tapering off, and we're come to the end of distributing that money, but we're still collecting and monitoring all that, those flows of dollars. But the goal for Beth and for our board is to now go out and really aggressively look for need for businesses and then respond to the people that do come in the door, and then kind of help manage the funds that we do have to best suit the community needs.
So he's saying that's all cool, but it paints a picture of I'm taking in quarterly payments and from these Tabor loans. And so I am reporting the Tabor loan payments and doing that kind of work. I'm hoping to be able to get those into someone else's hands so that all of that not into someone else's hands, but just realizing that it's a lot of work. And to do it properly, we have to channel it into the places that we have, and having a new accountant, I think that'll be absolutely fantastic. And we're working well together. So I didn't say that right.
Well, and what I'm taking away from an excellent question from Commissioner Hawkins is, at least from your responses, was that in the past it's been more of there's a need or emergency and we react. The EDA reacts and we react. And now with a more full-time professional, you're really trying to develop that authority, the organization, to be able to strategically target and be prepared to react, but then also develop a plan of how we elevate things.
Yeah, we'll still be reactionary, but part of the goals for Beth would be now getting back. It's been a several year COVID hiatus on business development. Now we really need to say, okay, now we get, that's not over, but we're far enough along. We need to now go back and focus on business, and part of our day and our week is just doing that. And it's still on my agenda, and we've got some leads on assisted living, for instance. There's still a component of the housing that probably falls in the EDA lap as well. Sure. The whole child care, is another, if you look at what's barriers to economic development, it's housing, child care, then other things. But Beth has taken some leadership in that whole healthcare collaborative, not healthcare, child care, excuse me. And, we've already expended some monies toward that, and I would guess more in the future, especially as bigger grants will need matching funds.
Well, I hope, and I was reading into what you're saying, so forgive me if it's not accurate, but what I'm hoping is in your role you have less of the busyness, you know, just, you know, kind of the churn, and more of that visionary and action oriented is what I'm hoping for, so.
You know, over the last year, that's been what I've had to learn. You know, I printed out your copies and pay the bills and put the stamps on and do all that stuff. And so getting a muscle memory and a memory to do that every month over and over. Now, I think in the next year, we will be able to focus strategically. I think that community engagement is a really important part of economic development, especially in our small area where we're all related, as we were talking about earlier. Even though we're related, we have to find the good things that work for everybody around. And so talking and engaging with the public, and then the board takes that engagement to inform their decisions. So that hasn't happened, and that was just brought up at our meeting before last about how we're going to start that, and so hopefully get that going.
Commissioner Solison, you had a question.
Well, I did. What I heard you say, Beth, is that you're doing a lot of the administrative aspects.
All of it.
All of these loans and things
All of
that
it.
came through. And effectively, as I recall, that was something that basically we asked the EDA to do because we were in a business preservation mode in the midst of
Correct.
COVID and that type of thing. Do we still think that's the right place to do that type of function for the county?
No, we should hand it over to Brady.
Howard, I'm
It-
not laughing.
No,
Brady's not laughing.
I think we're within a year of working that through, are we, or less than a year?
I think that the organization could absolutely grow into someone possibly where even just a half a staff person that was shared with the HRA. Jason and I have talked about it. We've kicked it around. Wouldn't it be great to have someone to hand this off to, or
Yeah.
someone to go down and
So
do this for us when we
that's
were on
my-
the other end of the
Yeah.
county, or
It's
whatever.
all the taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all, but it's right, where is the right place for this to occur? When it was initially decided that, you know, since we were, as I said, in a business preservation, it made perfect sense, you know,
Right.
EDA, help us out here, let's make sure we get these out there, let's make sure it's done correctly,
Yeah.
so that we can track it, trace it, you know, have accountability for it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's still okay to keep
Yeah.
it where it is, but I just wanted to have the conversation.
Well, and we're starting that conversation of do we need a staff support person, and, you know, just to be really conservative, you know, it wasn't on the table for this budget, but, you know, one of our hopes is to do a strategic planning session with our board. We have 3 new, not only Beth is new, we've got 3 new board members.
Great time to do it.
And it is a great time to do it, and I did, you know, going through the performance review documents that we developed, it became really apparent to me that this is a big lift to bring Beth up to speed in a year, everything EDA. Yeah, it's.
No small challenge.
Yeah.
Pandemic aside.
Yeah.
And
Anyone
pandemic,
coming into
yeah.
the job would have a
Yeah.
tough time coming
Yeah.
up to speed with.
So anyway, I hope that through this discussion, you can give us a positive, give us
I-
positive on our budget so that we do
Well,
have the tools to move forward.
yeah.
I think it's a thing that belongs in the EDA, that kind of.
I don't.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it. Like I said, I wanted to have the conversation, Beth, and the other thing is just, what I heard you say as well is, to Commissioner Hawkins' question is, you're kind of transitioning now. You still have that administrative tasks and things that are going on, but you're trying to shift the organization back into the traditional role of, we got to continue to build, we got to do this, and we have childcare we're going to take on, and we have some of these other things. So I think the workload is currently there to, you know, to warrant what's being proposed. It's just, you got to look at the whole picture of what's there and got added during COVID and what's still kind of hanging on during that, and then the needs of the county as we move forward. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, and I've certainly, from sitting on the EDA, seen kind of the change over the last year and a half. I've seen an opportunity to leverage our budgets in a different way. Beth has great skill in looking at statutes, seeking out grant opportunities, and I think creating a broader vision where we can better serve the community. And in a proactive sense, where we're proactively looking at business development, we're looking at, still childcare as being really important, but also workforce development. That's a really important part of what we do.
And what we haven't mentioned, the EDA owns Spirit National Golf Course. It has been, it's running along fine, it cash flows, it's doing all the things it should. The board will be challenging Beth to take a more active role in knowing what's going on at Spirit National and helping manage that whole business side of it. So that's a whole another area of time that I think our board is going to have the expectations of her to move into.
And then our board has also asked Beth to work with the city of Grand Marais as we look at the Cedar Grove Business Park and look at zoning and making sure that there are opportunities there that meet the needs of everyone in the community.
Do you play golf, Beth?
I don't, but my uncle does.
Okay. I'd be glad to let you tour the area, the golf course.
Love it.
I do some landscaping work there, so.
Beautiful there.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Mills.
Is the board full now?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
We have a full
Mhm.
board, yes.
yeah. The Myron, Mark, and
Iron Bersheim, Mark Shackleton, and Steve
Mr.
Serbaugh
yeah,
have all
Steve.
three joined recently.
yeah.
Just maybe a little bit more on our slide. These are currently some of the projects that came in. The Superior Cycling Association, I got a call. Hey, can you help me with this grant? It's like, yeah, actually I have to do the grant. And so all of the grants through IRRB, the Superior Cycling Association, 25 grand, they got a rehab project thing. I had to go through and enter it in IRRB. And so for every one that we get, there's usually there's probably 3 or 4 that don't go through the full process. And so we walk through the process, what is going to be what they need to have a project. It's like, okay, do you have funding for your project? And we weed it all out. And so about maybe 25% of them get through to this point even. The Sabio Village project was huge. The EDA was a pass-through for this and the Sabio Village, and for the IRRB 500,000. And so those are ongoing management of these grants for at least 24 months that the EDA will be doing. And hopefully, it's really hard to look to the future when you've got 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. I think my list is about a dozen or so grants that have to be rolling and the reporting periods come up. And so when you look to the future, you're adding more to your plate because things don't drop off very fast. And so we'll be looking more at more for the pincushion rehab. I know that that's going on with the county as well. More with the deed childcare. Hopefully we'll get that. If we don't get the deed childcare, we're going to apply for the Northland Foundation childcare. So there's backup grants that we have to wait till we get them in. Yeah.
If I may, again, I want to, I guess, backtrack a little bit and apologize. In thinking of how, I was talking about the reactionary and much like you said was, what was the
Business preservation.
Thank you, better language there. I guess maybe your role isn't the visionary, it's more the board's role. And so that's maybe more of what my expectation, so that was maybe unfair expectations for the future, but I'm hoping they can.
But she's our leader, I mean.
All boards work differently,
Yeah,
but yeah, I
yeah.
hope to find guidance from the board.
Yeah.
For sure.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Cool. And then our last slide, if you don't mind, James. I think I've kind of just said this the whole time. The EDA, we address increasing the tax base, creation of jobs, and overall economic development. On the side, we are all of these other things too. In the conversation that goes on between them. Oftentimes, businesses and the government, they only see each other in public hearings or in places where it's like normal, like we were talking about in our business subsidy meeting yesterday is, they have to be here, right? And so they don't have to come to the EDA. They can come and ask questions and say, I have this zoning issue. And then I can talk to Mike or whoever, and just that go-between between the business and the government. I think that's one of my favorite parts of the job is being able to see the businesses know that the government is on their side. Really, we want you to succeed, and that's what the EDA does too. The community organization piece is another one of my favorite parts of it, is like community economic development is the ability for our community to develop, basically, is enhancing ourselves so that we can be, all those wonderful, beautiful, positive words of a community. And so economic development in our community means that we're helping out the Superior Cycling Association, we're helping out with the childcare stuff, we're helping out with different little community things, which is really fun. Our business assistance program is grants that people apply for, and it's great. People have a project, they can't get it done, they come to us, and they can. And don't forget our partners, the SBDC. Pat Campanaro is always busy with doing a lot of the same work that taking in people and then pointing them in the direction that they need to go to do what they want to do. And the HRA, Jason and I are getting along really good. I'm excited to see how, after he gets off of his, writing, just creating an organization, and how much work that takes, how we can start to focus on more of the future, which he's got a good handle on anyway. So I sometimes find myself learning a lot from him, and so I bring the local flair to the table, and he brings the really professional Duluth stuff, and I think that's a good team, and you guys can be sure that we're working well together. So there's a lot of stuff that we do. There's more stuff that we could do. Would love the board to think about it. It's just easing up some of that lower stuff so that the higher stuff can come to light.
Yeah, I look at that child care, that's still in a business preservation mode, quite frankly, right now.
Yeah.
And when
we're struggling to get some people back to work that had to come out of the workforce during COVID and that type of thing. Right now, we don't have the child care, so they just, or if they did, even if the spots were available, it's not affordable, so they can't, So that's all part of this, because we see the struggles that folks are having with getting the staffing they need to be able to either operate more hours like they'd like to, or, some at risk of continuing to provide the services.
And I just want to remind you that I haven't fully dropped housing either. It's on my job description, and I'm on a couple of boards that are revolved around housing, not board, like big boards, but the Northeast Minnesota Home Consortium is one of them that I attend often, and then also there is a couple of smaller ones that I get. So I'm still on all those mailing lists, so I end up going to a lot of the presentations for housing as well. So because it is economic development, and I've been kind of, that's it. And okay, yep, I think that's happy to answer anything.
All right. Any other questions for Beth? Commissioner Hawkins.
More questions. So first of all, I want to thank you. I've really, I've sat in on meetings that you've attended, and I think you and Jason, perfect, kind of the synergy there of working well together. So I want to say that. My comments are more related to the board and not Beth personally. I have maybe, Howard, you've appeared here, and I know other EDA members have appeared. We've talked about EDH budgets before. My biggest pet peeve is what was presented in our board packet today. No context. It's numbers on a paper. Nothing to compare it to. You're making me do the work, so I dig back. Well, what happened in 16? What happened in 20? What happened in 22? I was looking for numbers. So, there you go.
And
If you,
and
we
me
have
too.
to approve this.
Yes.
I'm saying, if you want me to vote yes on it, make sure it's a budget that shows last year's budget at least, year-to-date numbers, and proposed budget.
I am embarrassed by all of our accounting. One of the board's challenges to Beth is to get up to speed. We now have, and we have kind of rolled a couple of people that help us. Paul Gettle was doing a great job and knew everything. We switched to Claire, somebody that didn't really have time, and now we've got
Serena.
Serena. Now, Serena's doing a fabulous job. She and Beth have a fabulous relationship. We have actually moved our board meeting a week later in the month because we're always, it was too soon, so we couldn't close the month. By the time we closed the month and got the financials, it was the day of.
Literally, we were getting
Oh, my God.
financials
And
at the meeting.
It's been
so
driving me crazy.
That has been a really good thing that the
So-
board just moved their meeting so we can have it and we have time
So
to
I
review and study.
I share your frustration because I have it as well. I understand the background a little better, so I live with it. But my expectation and hope is, now if we get our budget sooner, before our meeting, we can actually go through them and come up with, do the background and the questions like you're asking, so that we can, month by month, then improve and we're gonna, I think our monthly budgets will see.
2 years back.
2 years back, every month, so that we have that kind of history. It's driving me crazy, but we're fixing it, so thank you.
I'm glad you are,
Yeah.
glad you're working on it. That, to me, is high priority. We're using taxpayer dollars for your work.
Yeah.
Taxpayers deserve to
I
have you be
want,
accountable.
I want
wherever
the numbers to tell the
dollars.
story correctly. I'm comfortable
Thank you.
that we're doing a good job with the taxpayers' money, but it's not telling the story to my satisfaction either.
Okay.
So thank you.
So my next issue about finances, this would be the balance sheet that was presented at the EDA meeting. It's showing $575,000 in current bank account, current assets.
Yes.
And my question then is, how much of that is restricted? How much is unreserved, unrestricted funds? We deserve to know, are you adding to, how much do you have?
Well, understand that we get paid twice a year, and, that money that's on the balance sheet, we project that forward to make sure that we have the cash flow to carry us through to the next county payment, so,
Totally,
yeah.
very necessary to do, but
Yeah.
it's not clear from here.
I-
how-
I agree.
If your cash flow is correct or not, because you don't have enough detail.
I agree.
Okay,
I will
thank you.
work to fix that. And those are great observations and the ones I have myself, so,
I'm just
no,
maybe a little frustrated that here we are
me too.
in September,
I know.
and I've said this before. So
Yeah.
here I'm saying it in public, okay?
Very good.
I think the
There we
first
go.
meeting I was at, I remember you saying it, and I apologize.
Well, and we have rolled our, Beth is new. She's getting a strong
And
challenge.
Beth is doing her job as directed by the board.
Yes,
So
and
there,
so the board will be, how does she fill her time? The board's gonna be challenging her to take on quite a few new things, so I think her time is gonna be well used up. And, it's the background stuff. We haven't paid as much attention. The other former director just went off and did things and was trying to do good work. Now we're trying to do good work, but also do all the correct administrative background stuff, so.
All right, other questions?
Well,
Go ahead.
so the new accounting will help with that.
Yes, it'll be a work in progress, but by this time next year, I hope that we'll have a better story to tell, in more background information, so.
Commissioner
I just
Hawkins.
have, I guess, a question for you.
Sure.
Administrator Yorkie. So this is a presentation, but This is not, because I realize we as a board have to approve the EDA budget. This is not our approval.
Correct.
And that would be
Yeah, there's no
next-
action
Okay.
taken here.
I just wanted to make sure, I thought that in my head, but I thought you'd better ask.
Yeah. No, that would
Thank
be,
you.
I mean, I'm sure you would ask, but is there anything I can get to you before then?
Any of that
Commissioners,
beforehand would be very
So-
appreciated.
Yeah.
I had a comparative, we have a back to 2018 comparative. I went back and I added mine to the end of it, and then I brought the formula all the way over, and some of the numbers on the comparative were just, they didn't add up. So I didn't want to give you the wrong ones, but we do have a comparative. I'll clean it up and send it out to Mr. Yorkie
That would be great.
and get it to you.
That'd be good to have.
So that
Yeah.
you know, and I'll add percentages into there too, so that it's a little bit more, something you can visualize,
Yeah.
so.
thank you. That'd
And
be
if you
very
can
helpful.
get a list of what's restricted and unrestricted funds and what you're still waiting to spend.
It's the whole budget category stuff is on my list too. I mean, it's,
Serena's not going on a honeymoon, is she? Okay. It's not allowed. Anyway, okay. I'll
Working
get that for you.
honeymoon.
yeah.
She was working up until the day before her wedding,
Oh my
so
gosh.
we're on a better trail than everything.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll need to have your audit done before you can give those final numbers on those.
Correct.
balances.
And how
Same
close
as
is the audit?
Yeah. The
All the
audit-
numbers turned into the audit committee? Or I mean, the auditor,
We
whoever.
are in direct communication as of yesterday with the auditor, and we have a checklist that we are working on. Yes.
Great.
If they want to talk to me, they have to do it in the next couple of weeks, or wait till November.
Cool.
This is high priority.
Yeah.
This is high
I'm gonna-
priority.
I'm going to mention one thing about the EDA, is that they are an exception to the rule that this is the maximum levy. Special taxing district can increase their levy after the proposed.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
HRA is the same, right?
We haven't determined if they're a special taxing district.
Okay. I had thought that they were. I could
I'm
be
not
wrong.
certain.
No expert.
We're going to work through a checklist with our new auditors.
Yes, I
as
know
to
they're
exactly
very
what
separate, they're separate and supposed to be
For
independent,
sure.
so, you know.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
I'm
pretty
sorry, I think
specific.
I missed the beginning. Are you saying
Sorry,
we could set?
We can't go back on.
Help me catch up, please.
Yeah.
So if they're asking for a $300,000 levy. We said, no, you only get 100,000. But we could adjust that after December, is that what you're saying?
No.
After the proposed, between now, when we
Oh.
approve the proposed next week,
Yeah,
from
In
that
December.
point until final levies are due, it could be
it
increased.
could be increased.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just special, in Cook County, it's just special taxing districts.
I
There's some
heard after that.
regional- There's an exception to the exception for, well, the Twin Cities, they have some regional special taxing districts that can't be increased, but these, on the local level here, can.
I just need to say, you know, the cost of doing business and the cost of just having an office is a big part of our budget, and, you know, I want to have some money on top of that so we can actually do good work. And, you know, if you go back into history, you know, I'm old, so I know these things, but before some of us kind of came in and revitalized the EDA, I mean, we were just paying a lot of money for staff, and there's just a lot of money going out and no projects. So, I mean, my goal is to do good work. You know, I don't go to meetings because I like these people. I mean, I like the people anyway. But I go there to try to get some good things done, and you know, we were able to attract a great new staff person, and you know, I hope that we get the resources to really go out and do the work we're expected to do, so.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very
Yeah.
much for your presentation
Thanks for
and
your
your
time.
response to our questions.
Yeah, great.
It's been very
Good
valuable.
questions, yeah, that's helpful for us too, I think. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Have a
Yep.
good day. So the next item on our agenda is the Subordinate Governmental Service District discussion. And we have our Highway Department here. And I'm sure all of us have thought back to kind of the policy that we have on private roadway maintenance, and we've reviewed all of that. And we have a district that we'll be looking at to actually vote on in the near future. But we felt before that it would be very valuable, very helpful to have our highway department kind of share their perspective and give us an overview. So we'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss this today. We are just waiting for the presentation to come up momentarily.
And my apologies, Lisa, but I was going to run it off this laptop, and then at the beginning of the meeting, we had some AD drama, so I'm reconfiguring this. So just one moment, please.
You get to be part of that drama.
Well, I'm all about a drama-free life. I don't know.
Yeah, me too, me too. Doesn't always work that way, though.
I can just go ahead and start the discussion if you want.
Part of it in the discussion, I know one of the things we were really interested in when we were entertaining the discussion of adding another one was how much capacity is there within the department
Right.
to do these
Well,
things? Because
and-
we felt like we're being asked to make a decision and we haven't even chatted with you guys yet. And so someone took the opportunity to do that, and that was good.
And that's where, and Robbie actually set up a meeting with the entire highway department so that we could talk about the issue and get things out on the table and what capacity do we have now, but what do we look at in the future is happening in Cook County as we're seeing this tremendous amount of population growth, and how is that going to impact our highway department and the ability to meet the needs of the service districts as they get set up.
And we'll get into some of that, but first I wanted to provide an overview, so if you want to go to the next slide. Thank you for the opportunity. So I don't know if you're familiar with this, but the Minnesota Statute 375B provides the framework for establishing, operating, and terminating SGSDs, and then the roadway maintenance policy that Commissioner Sullivan referenced provides all the detail for Cook County. So per the statute, there are 3 opportunities for establishing an SGSD, and they're shown up on the screen. The creation by petition method is what we are using here, and you're in the midst of that. So that requires that 10% of the qualified registered voters within the proposed boundary submit a petition to the county that this be considered. And then the county board has that 30 days to hold the public meeting where you will entertain that question whether that district shall or shall not be established. And then following that, you have that 30-day window to actually, by resolution, approve or disapprove the establishment of that district. So that's where we're at in the one that's on the table right now. Yes, sir.
I thought we were doing a creation by the board.
And that's how I've presented it to the county board since I've been.
Oh.
Yep.
Because of the question of what is a qualified voter.
Right.
And
It's messy.
it's not established anywhere in law. There's many opinions on what it is. And the way it states is not clear. It sounds like a qualified voter within the district. Does that mean they're a registered voter within the district? If that's the case, almost no one is a qualified voter. Because
Yeah.
most of the people that live in these districts are seasonal residents. They don't vote here.
They don't vote. Okay.
So it's never been a clear, never had a very, very clear answer. We have opinions of our county attorney and so on. So what we've done, we kicked the can down the road by doing it under the board's authority, but using the petition to guide us.
Yeah, we
So
are
we're doing
following the
okay.
steps of the
We're doing
petition,
all the
so.
steps of
Carry
the
on.
petition
All right.
to tell us what they want.
Yeah.
He had you worried there for a minute.
Well, I have you worried because,
Next month.
because we've always followed these steps, but if you look at the statute, which I have in front of me, it doesn't, the statute does not specify the petition when it's creation by board, if you've looked at the statute. So we follow the steps, but you're technically doing it by board. So I should say the steps are being followed if it's
Thank you.
creation by
I was
petition.
just being particular.
No, that's a very good question. So, but anyway, once the board makes that decision, if it is approved, then you are still following that procedure where it then goes into effect at the date specified or 30 days after publication of
Correct.
resolution.
After the resolution.
Yes, okay. So if we look at the key components next, I'm going to talk a little bit more about our policy. So we require that a roadway representative and an alternate, if so desired, be elected prior to that SGSD being established. That person will serve for a minimum of 2 years as that representative, and they are then our liaison, and that's an important position for us, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So per our policy, we have 2 planning discussions with each roadway representative annually. The topics include desired maintenance services, the bid schedule, and the potential budget. Available winter services, I don't know if you've looked at all of that, include snow removal, sanding, bank winging, culvert steaming. The summer services typically include grading, gravel servicing, brushing or mowing, storm repairs if that comes up, calcium chloride application. And then we have that line item for special services, which comprise roadway construction, culvert replacement, and other major work. One of the things that I do want to mention is that both the statute and our policy talk about SGSD termination, and that can be done by election or resolution of the county board. It's really important that everyone understands if an SGSD chooses to terminate, any contracts in effect at the time of termination will remain valid for the life of the contract. So for example, let's say one of the SGSDs comes up and says, I don't like the fall bid. We want to terminate the SGSD. The board has already approved those contracts for this winter, so they would have to honor that contract through the winter plowing season. So that's something important to know. Then we talk about the assessment options. I'm just trying to give you a quick overview. I'm not going to go into detail on these. Cook County offers the 6 assessment options for new SGSDs. They're listed on the screen. The auditor's office, Brady's staff, sets these up and levies the homeowners with their tax assessments for each SGSD according to the assessment method chosen. At the Highway Department, we don't know which method each SGSD utilizes. So when we're working on our budgets for each SGSD for the upcoming year, we utilize the number of taxpayers in each SGSD and then figure out what the average is based on basically a per lot, so that we know what it would be as an average for those either 5 or 70, depending on the size of the SGSD, and that is the range of members in the SGSDs. So,
Does that work then? I mean, that average covers the cost?
well, that's an average for us to look at and say, is that reasonable? Here's what the average was a year ago. And so how much of an increase or decrease are we looking for? So that just gives us a gauge. For example, one of the things I will talk about, and I can talk about it right now, is that 2022 has been a horrendously expensive year for all of the SGSDs. And their assessments are going to have to go up next year. Now, we have a contingency fund in each SGSD. We make sure that they're always, in general, have a small contingency fund in the bank with us. Those have been pretty much depleted for all of the SGSDs. To give you an example, our largest one, Irish Creek, had over $10,000 in the bank as of December 31st, and that was with the plowing in December. That was gone by the 3rd week of January this year.
Yeah.
Their plowing for the first 6 months of 2022 and with the administrative fee is $34,800. The most expensive year they've had since their inception with all of their expenses for the year was $25,000, and that was an exception. Most of the years were at about $10,000 to $16,000. They're at $34,800 6 months into the year.
Over the 10 or over the 10 or?
No, that's the
Okay,
total,
okay,
so,
yeah, yeah.
and now their assessment for this year, I brought all of my statements. We have, I keep spreadsheets on every SGSD, some of which go back to the 1990s, but so for Irish Creek.
Oh, I love you.
So for Irish Creek, for example, they had $10,337.82 in the bank. They have had $34,800 worth of plowing, and then their administrative fee, which we'll go over in a minute, of $2,200. So they've already had $37,000. Their highest year was $27,000 with the administrative fee. In 2021, their total expenses were $11,386. In 2019, they were $18,604. In 2018, they were $17,763. So there's no way we could have anticipated that they're going to have probably a $42,000 to $43,000 year this year. I mean, and so now the other ones are on smaller scales because they're not 10.5 miles. But that just is a very graphic example of what this year has done. Another one had a $3,500 storm damage repair this year that wasn't budgeted. And they had that $4,000 in the bank, but now that's gone because that's a $3,500 expense that we didn't budget for.
Their taxes going to go up.
Their assessments are going to have to go up. Now, for one like Irish Creek, where there are 70 taxpayers, it's not as impactful as one where there are 5 members or 20 members. And so that's why we just look at what the average is going to be every year to kind of give us an idea, well, so that we can look at the percentage increase, because I run the percentage increases. And if we have to, if it's a horribly difficult amount, we can come to the board and we can say we need to spread it over a couple of years and we could finance it. When Irish Creek was first established, because we had no idea what it was going to cost, we did finance them for the first 2 years to get them up and running. They are right now $13,000 in the hole after the May payment. When the October payment comes in, that's going to get them down to where they're only hopefully going to be about $4,000 in the hole by the end of the year. So that's not significant. We can make that up because they have 70 taxpayers.
Mhm.
But it's been a difficult year for the SGSDs in terms of budget.
Commissioner Mills.
So maybe we should look at increasing reserves for the SGSDs.
Well,
Like
yes and no.
Each one has their reserves.
Each one
right?
has their reserves, but everyone has pretty much used them. I mean, they had
Right.
$10,000 in reserves at the end of the
Right,
year.
so that's what I'm saying. If it's not
And-
covering,
But historically, that has been more than enough. This
You
last,
wouldn't raise it based on that.
on that aberration. Now, if we have 2 or 3 winters in a row where we're having these typically bad,
Now it's a new normal.
now it's a new normal, and then yes, we will look at changing that. For right now, we will just have to increase. And truthfully, with all of the other issues surrounding taxes in 2022, I held a much closer line on the assessments for them than I would normally. But we had so much public outcry about the assessments on real estate really impacting people's properties. We had COVID, we had inflation. And so I probably cut them a little finer than I would normally have, because I was aware that there were already so many other financial impacts on our taxpayers. And so we talk about all of that when we're looking at this. So, yeah.
easy peasy, huh?
Easy peasy. Well, and we're guessing. I mean, we have all the historical, and I'll talk about that on the next slide of contract administration. So we administer the maintenance contracts, and we advertise and award contracts twice a year. So there's summer maintenance and there's winter maintenance. And I should say, of our existing SGSDs, all are year-round but one. One is only winter, and that's Irish Creek. So they only have the winter contract. So the maintenance superintendent oversees the work, and I track the expenses. And then each December, we are tasked with preparing an estimated budget for the upcoming year. So we use historical prices. We look at average number of plowings for the last number of years, and of course, 21-22 is going to really change that average for everyone. And utilizing that and a projected year-end balance, we're working on this before we have gone through December. And so we don't know how bad December's going to be. We project, based on other years, what their likely year-end balance will be. Then we prepare an estimated budget for each SGSD for the next year, and we submit that to the auditor's office. And that assessment includes that administrative fee that we're talking about. And you can see there's a $1,200 setup fee for the first year, and then each following year, per our roadway maintenance policy, it's 10% of the total assessment for the upcoming year for a one-season SGSD. And for everyone else, then it's 15% of that total assessment we take in as an administrative fee, because we understand that 2 seasons requires more work than one. And, you know, we'll have to have that discussion in the future if that's an appropriate amount. And then there is a financing option that I had mentioned for when major expenses occur. The next slide will show the list of our existing SGSDs, the length, and the year they were established, because I find this fascinating. We have 8 right now that are in effect. 3 were established in the 1990s, 1 between 2000 and 2010, 2 from 2011 to 2020. We've approved, the board has approved 2 in the last 2 years. We've got another one on the docket, and you've disapproved 1. So we are seeing a change in the number of requests coming in. And then we're going to talk discussion points. So the new SGSDs, new roadway representatives require a significant amount of time. We also have to help educate newer SGSD members about how to handle any concerns they have, because we do not want 5 to 70 members from any given SGSD contacting the highway department superintendent every time they have a question. It's just not feasible. They need to go through their roadway representative. That's why that framework is in place and is so important. Additionally, we do not want them reaching out directly to a contractor, because our contractors are a valuable, limited commodity, and we stand to lose them if they have, again, 5 to 70 people calling and saying, you should have been plowing when there was 2 1/4 inches of snow versus 3 or whatever. And so that's why that framework in our policy is so important, and why we really work to educate our SGSD members when they contact us. We're willing to answer the questions, that's not it, but we want to encourage them to use that process so that Matt in particular isn't taking calls from 20 people on one road. He's taking calls from the representative who's had a chance to mesh all of those comments together.
We provide a buffer for the contractor as well, so that they're receiving information from one source rather than multiple sources.
Yes, it is an important framework. And then the next item.
Before you move
yes,
on,
I'm sorry.
Is that working?
It's inefficient.
Which part?
I would say the serving as a go-between, so it's sort of playing telephone.
Yeah.
You know, literally,
But I
playing
meant
telephone.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead.
Well, what I meant was, is it working to encourage residents to contact their liaison, or is that also a challenge?
I think it depends on the individual's familiarity with the highway department, if I can say that tactfully.
Sure. Yeah.
If it's someone who maybe
If you know somebody.
knows us very well, serves on committees for the county, they feel that they can reach out to us directly regardless of the process. And we've worked very hard to help them understand that we still need them to respect the process. So in terms of that, I think that part is working better, but the overall process, which we're going to talk about, especially with the next line item, understanding of the bidding process, is huge, and we need you to be aware of that. So the bidding process is probably the most time-consuming part in terms of dealing with the roadway representatives, because we do have quite often 1 or more SGSD members who don't like the bid, and they feel then that they should ask us to reject a bid.
They can do it cheaper.
And they don't understand that there are statutes governing what we do. Our job is to advertise an award to the lowest responsible bidder. Unless there's a material error, the contractor is debarred by the state of Minnesota, or we've had significant problems with this contractor on another contract leading us to terminate a different contract for cause, we have to award to the lowest responsible bidder. Even if it's just one.
Even if it's just one, yes.
And we are in the midst of that again right now. Bids were awarded last week, and we have one SGSD in particular that is monopolizing Matt's time. And they think that we need to now re-advertise because the bid was too high.
And just to reiterate, we had one bid per SGSD.
Mhm.
No SGSD had two.
Wait, of all of them?
All of them, yeah. They all got one bid this year.
Not a single SGSD had two bids.
And I think that's a statement as to the burden on all of our contractors right now.
Scarcity of contracts.
Scarcity of
No, that's good.
contractors.
We need to know.
And-
That's really like a statute change or an amendment or something that should be addressed, I think. I'm sure that's a statewide issue. This contractor shortage isn't just for Cook County, it's maybe most acutely in Cook County.
But the
Well-
nature of the roads in Cook County is
Ah,
quite different,
yeah.
and that's what I don't think the legislature
Sure,
understands.
sure.
Well, and then there's that very subjective, what makes a high bid? I mean, we are statutorily obligated on all of our contracts, state aid contracts, SGSD contracts. It doesn't matter. We are statutorily obligated to award to the lowest responsible bidder. Now, if it's an extreme departure on, say, a state aid project like with the building up at the highway department this summer, we chose to re-advertise. But for our SGSDs, when we know that we have only local bidders, not like a state aid project, we don't have the luxury of saying, well, someone doesn't like the bid. A, we don't have just cause, and B, we don't have that luxury because our behind-the-scenes work to even make sure we get the bids is something more significant than what we would do anywhere else. So we email all of the specs to everyone who's ever pulled the plans and is still an active contractor when we advertise. Nanette emails. She also calls the contractors and lets them know they have gotten an email with the specs. Here's when the bids are due. We are making every effort we can within our legal framework to let them know we need your bids. And we used to, at least on a few of them, get two bids. It's just not happening. We are sitting there right up until the letting time frame of 2 p.m. going, please let this contractor come in before 2 p.m. I mean, really with bated breath. Sometimes they're coming in 20 minutes beforehand. And so we had one bid per contract. Yeah.
And so, at-large taxpayers are not on the hook there, but the residents of the
Residents are.
SGSD is.
Right.
And
And-
highway department's, stretched, right? But-
Yeah, and I should know, we have not historically tracked our time on SGSDs because we have an accounts receivable, very specific accounting framework set up for all of the invoices that we process. And it's difficult for Nanette, for example, when she is working on all of the specs and proposals with the maintenance superintendent to go, okay, I should charge a quarter hour here. This one, we had more questions, a half an hour here. And so we just historically have not had a need because we didn't have a lot of new SGSDs and we weren't spending a lot of time. It just went into our regular time that gets spread out through the 3X unallocated spreads to all of our county functions at the end of the year. Josh started trying to track his time when he was the maintenance superintendent, and he came out to me and he said, it's too hard, I don't necessarily get to, when I'm out on the road and someone calls, get to look at a clock and know how much time I spent on an SGSD. So we don't have a really good time frame handle, but we can tell you that our newer SGSDs are requiring a lot more time. And we don't always have answers for them that they are real happy with. So back to the one of the week, where now we have an SGSD that is really wanting us to go back and have the board unapprove a bid they've already awarded.
And they're not happy with the one bid that they got.
Yes.
And then there's not really a guidebook for what to do next. They say, what's our option now? And I say,
Crossed my mind.
well, I don't know.
Yeah.
The policy says we award to the lowest responsible bidder.
Right.
That is the policy. And I didn't grab the full folder, and I wish I had, because I could have told you the percentage increase on their bid, and I didn't grab it, so I
That's
apologize.
I almost looked it up. That's okay. I don't need to know.
I'm trying to remember what their bid was last year, but I can tell you, I think theirs went from $350 per plowing to $594, which is significant. But Irish Creek's also went up by $3.25 per plowing occurrence. So I believe that the number of plowings this last winter and the inflationary factors of fuel have really driven increases, and it wasn't just the one, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. And that's when I saw that list, I'm like, okay, well, we don't know, is gas gonna be $6 a gallon, diesel or $6 a gallon this winter? If I was bidding,
and
I'm
so-
gonna make sure I cover that.
And then there is also the issue of the mobilization time as well as the fuel. And the two that saw the bigger increase are out east, and the contractors do have to account for that, especially with the possibility of the high fuel prices. So we would appreciate some guidance, but I'd like you to provide any more input you would feel necessary.
I'm just
I'm just on the
interested,
learning curve
as
right
you
now.
coming into this position, kind of how you view it.
So totally subjective. It puts us in an interesting position because we're not in control of timing. All we can do is say, you know, we're the intermediary, so we've had, and we, you know, we're definitely a consistent, calm voice to the contractor. But in turn, then we receive it from the public. And unlike our county roads that we can determine when they get plowed and how they get plowed and who plows them, and, you know, I won't say we can totally determine the condition because we're still behind. But, you know, I can only request that a contractor get a bid for a new culvert, for example. I can't, and then I wait, just like a homeowner would. And then meanwhile, I get contacted by the representative. Well, any word? No, but I'll let you know. So it's just, in that way, it's very inefficient. And I can't, we can't, as a highway department, ensure outcomes.
Correct. Yeah, I think there's a perception that we have more influence over that process than is in reality. I mean, it really is no different than if you had either a road association or a homeowners association that was doing that, you know, interface with them. But they don't see it that way. I think they really believe that, well, if the county goes in on our behalf, we'll get the better deal.
Well, there are two positives to having the county intervene. One, and this is a huge one for most of the groups that decide to form an SGSD, the big thing is that now all members will be assessed and will pay their fair share.
Right.
And so that's a huge reason why many of these
That's
groups.
what we're dealing with,
Yes.
with the current one, I think that's coming in.
And then the other thing is, while we
Bringing
can,
alignment.
while we cannot actually guarantee the outcome, we do have a consistent relationship with all of the contractors.
Sure.
They know us, they know the primary contact, and for the most part, in terms of things like plowing, yes, we can call them if there's an issue and we can have a resolution. It's the other special projects that really are difficult because the contractors are stretched and they're not getting the bids to us. They're not, you know, maybe having as much time to allocate to some of those specialty things. But plowing, I think we do have a really good rapport and ability to contact a contractor. Because part of the specs, they have to tell us what time of day they guarantee they will plow by on each SGSD. When they bid on one, it's time of day, first day, second day. And so we do have at least that in writing, and they do adhere to that, as well as the minimum number of inches that have to be on the ground before they will plow.
So the specs provide a layer of quality control,
Yes.
at least on paper.
And hopefully through the winter, we'll find whether or not they do. And we've actually had to terminate one contractor on a winter contract. So they do give us some teeth, I guess.
But we don't have specs for some of them.
We do, but summer maintenance is not so time specific. So for example, with summer maintenance, it is how many bladings they want in the season, whether that's 1 or 2. It's that they want this many yards of gravel. And what has happened, and this is an issue, and I didn't think about it until right now, there was one season where one contractor had gotten 3 or 4 of those with the graveling, and they just didn't get to it because their gravel pile didn't get put up. So 4 of our SGSDs didn't get their summer project done. Now, they were understanding because our supervisor then, not superintendent, talked with them and explained that the contractor had a gravel shortage and they were willing to roll it to the next year. But, you know, on a state aid project, that doesn't happen.
Commissioner Mills.
What's the total cost of all the SGSDs?
The total cost?
Mhm.
I'd have to add them up, but we're in that $75,000 range for all of their budgets together for this year, for 8 of them. Because again, we have a couple that are very small, they're a short length, they're only 5 to 8 members, and so their budgets are really small. So for example, on one of those, their budget for the year is $6,000 for the entire year, because we can't be, you know, assessing much more than that on 8, 9 people, or it becomes cost prohibitive.
Wait, that's the smallest?
No, the smallest one is 5,000 a year, 5,014.
Okay.
So,
That's like, and the total was like 76-ish?
yes, I'd have to go look. I've got it in the budget, the highway department budget, so. And then they go up to, but, and even Irish Creek was projected to be, you know, about 24,000 for the year, because they've only ever gone over that 1 year in 10 years. And now they're already at 37,000 and counting. So it's just been an unusual year.
Well, let's hope it was an unusual year
And
and that
not
we
the
don't
new normal.
continue to have
Well,
these types of events. But I think this has been really valuable for us to look at all the different districts, to look at the size, to look at the variation, and get that perspective on all those nuances that you're dealing with.
Well, I just wonder, you know, on options, I mean, if we were to say that we were beyond the capacity of our highway department to continue to monitor or manage that type of thing, statute-wise, I don't know where that puts us then. You know, if you can get the group that says, we want you guys to do this, I don't know where that puts us. Any thoughts on that?
Well, then you'd have to go with a legal opinion, because they can force it with a petition vote.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to go with your legal opinion.
Yep.
And
I just wondered, because granted, like we said, even with the group that was here, you know, if you had a homeowners association or road association, you could do these things, you would have, in fact, even more rights, depending on what you chose, as far as control over things that happen within here. But the biggest issue, I think, was brought forward that if you had a, you know, divergent group of thinkers in these areas that, you know, whether it should be, shouldn't be, and this type of thing, and they're trying to look at how you get it done, this is a mechanism that basically brings it together.
And if you had another 5 minutes, I'd bring up some issues just from the administrative.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
yes,
that's
please.
pre-us, yes. I was hoping Brady would be addressing those.
Absolutely.
So I just jotted some notes this morning for the meeting. First, just thinking of defining the area, that's kind of the first issue that comes up. The statute defines it as a compact contiguous district. So you can't just define a line somewhere. It's a district. All our districts are defined by reference to a map, because it's, you know, laborious to try to define them. Otherwise, the owners generally know the roadways to be maintained, but often haven't described a district. They know the roadway, they know a number of people that want the service. So it can take significant effort to determine the outlines of a district. That involves GIS, obviously, to do that with the mapping, and which area, how many, which ones are we including? That just brings up another question, whether you could define a roadway, that's a legal question, as an area of a road to be improved if it's accessed by remote properties. I'm not sure if we do that specifically, but I know there's been proposals for that. We're over here, a group of us, but we want this section of road improved. But we're not on that road. So that's just,
But to get to my house, I have to
Yeah.
drive over.
and how to decide which parcels to include. It's not defined in statute or policy. It could be defined, and sometimes is, by current or potential benefit. Benefit might be defined by access. The simplest definition is a driveway with a fire number and a cabin right on the road. That's very simple and clear. But in capturing all of the parcels that they want and need the service currently to create this district, the outlines of the district can capture parcels with no current use or access. For example, a district can include parcels with potential access for parcels without a driveway. It can include parcels with no footage on the road, but they may have an easement or not an easement to the roadway, but a potential easement that they could gain. Some parcels captured in the district may have alternate access or potential access to another roadway. It can also be defined by improvements of the parcel. Does it have a cabin? But if it doesn't, could it have an RV? When does it become improved? I mean, defining it by the assessor's definition is the easiest thing, like from our standpoint, but that doesn't necessarily match what, the homeowners there how they would want to define it, and there's a time lag from when you would capture it, from when the assessors put in an improvement on the road. It may have happened sometime earlier, and so you're not capturing people who are actually using the road. And then defining who will pay the charge currently. And this can be by any of the methods you saw in the policy, but the issue is unresolved as to whether to include those, and this kind of gets back to what I've already said, but currently benefiting or potentially benefiting, and it's different in different districts. The one we're asked to approve coming up on McFarland, they would like to exclude those who don't have improvements, but they want to include those with a driveway or a path who may have some type of improvement, but exclude the others until such time as they may have an improvement. Then there's property splits. This handling is undefined in the policy. The current practice in the auditor's office is to include split parcels in the assessment as the district is currently defined. And usually that's not really an issue. By lot, by acreage, by value, it's a new split parcel, fine. It can be included, but you could have, now you've split something where the entire parcel had footage on the road and had a driveway access. The split parcel is up here, it has neither. It may have better access to somewhere else, but it has no access or easement at the time. It may at a later time. So it's not that these are unsolvable, but none of them are in policy, and they're all discussed every time one of these comes up. An owner may split a property and keep both for future consideration. So is this one defined as by parcel? No, they're going to pay twice. They may be keeping it for family members in the future. They may be keeping it for many reasons, future selling or not even. But so ideally that would be defined. And then, all of these issues are discussed in the auditor's office with the owners who are exploring the option. GIS is quickly involved as they attempt to define the district, and they also need to create lists with addresses for mailing, etc. So that's just a
So it's a considerable amount of administrative time spent.
There can be.
Even in the discussion
Yeah.
of whether they should do it or not.
I have files this thick on those that you've never seen or heard of.
Right, well, that's what I mean, I
Yeah.
can see where tremendous amount of time just in exploration.
Well, and then you can have issues arise, as we did on one SGSD a couple of years ago, where someone felt that they shouldn't have been assessed, and they asked to be removed because they said they could access their property via a different method, which was a private road. Turns out the private homeowners didn't like that because they're putting vacation rentals up, and that individual had to come back and ask to be re-added to the SGSD. And that just creates that much more work for Brady's staff.
Sure.
It's difficult.
Policy to go over.
I think we've got another policy that we need to examine and think about its impact today, but its impact in the future. And I think this is the beginning of a number of conversations we need to have.
Commissioner Sullivan, can I ask for guidance as to this particular existing SGSD that is in a situation where they don't like the bid that they got, but there's one bid, and there's not really a clear path forward for them if they don't like it. And I'm just kind of want to open that up, because the answer could be, well, highway department, you guys should figure it out. But I think that it's hard for us to, we have no guidance as to what the process is at that point. So just want to leave it out there.
Yeah.
And-
Put it on the table.
We're not a decision-making body today,
Right.
but we have somebody that likes to spitball things.
Well, and I'm actually thinking Brady, with his knowledge of state statute and bidding practices, might be able to give us some guidance as
Yeah,
well.
Well, yeah, because it would seem you go back and you appeal to them to say, well, we've gone out for bids. We
And
could
this
go
is
put
the
it
bid.
back out again, folks, but, I mean, this is the only one. And if we say no to this one, you may not be serviced this year.
Well, and there is a very dangerous precedent if we do that. The board's already approved it.
Oh, agreed.
And then the contractor may say, you didn't like it, well, I'm pulling my bids on all of my SGSDs for the
Understood.
future.
No, I agree with you.
And the time commitment of having to re-advertise. When they have a bid, they just don't like it. And I empathize. I know financial impacts are difficult. I'm not minimizing that.
But I think you are in a spot, and, Brady, defer to him, because I'm just giving an opinion, but it would seem in the contract that we have set up with them in providing the services, we've met that contract obligation.
That's,
And it is really back to the individual homeowners as a group, as those representative or paying into this. If as a group, not individually, but as a group, if they decide, we reject this bid and we don't want to pay it, then the conversation turns to our earlier discussion. Well, folks, you can choose to terminate, but there really isn't an option to not pay this.
Right.
Yes.
Because we've made the obligation on your behalf. And so this one is done, but if you're saying you want to terminate after this winter, then, okay, we can do that. But legally, I think you
It's
you
already-
have to follow through the obligations as we've said. And like I say, I'm just going through from what I've read and what we were talking about with the one we're looking at, and with because you educated me today, if you said no today, it makes sense that you're still on the hook because we've done all the steps up to this. You don't just get to say, no. But yeah, it's not a good spot to be in. I don't see another path.
no, you said everything I would have and more.
Wow.
That's
Have a
it.
good day.
All right.
That's all we need.
There you go.
Yep.
Thank you.
Maybe when you talk to them, go, oof, do that a couple times.
I'm good at that.
I bet he's done that a lot.
Yeah, it's a difficult conversation, but that's why you have to keep it focused on contracted through the county, services rendered with, and obligations
legal
made,
contract.
obligations
It's a
made
legal
on your
contract.
behalf to this vendor, so.
And all you have to do is say, hey, watch the YouTube meeting on this date at this time.
Well, they know
It
about
wasn't
the
my
meeting,
choice.
exactly.
It had
And
nothing to do with it.
honestly, this is the answer we came to, but we wanted to make sure that everyone's aware that the SGSDs are in this position.
And again, we empathize. We know that costs are difficult right now. Everyone's feeling a pinch.
Yeah, and I don't know how much, how worth it, how much effort is worth to show the increase in cost for the other bids as well, just to give a frame of reference, if that is at all.
In fact, I actually went through and I figured the cost per mile of every bid, because most of them are short little ones, but then we have the 10.5 mile one, and I wanted to see what the cost per mile actually came out to for all of them, and it was really quite interesting. So I have all of that information for them if they want.
Well, and to be honest, the alternative then is dissolve the SGSD, which then puts them in a position of a road association, which not everybody's paying into, trying to maintain the road. So it's, which they might end up paying more.
I wouldn't.
Almost
If
guaranteed.
you only got one bid
Right.
on it, unless you know somebody that's willing to go do it, I don't know.
That lives
that's
on
a-
the road.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't know of another path that gets you there, that makes, to make it better. Because that's what, they're looking for us to make it better for them. Well, that's not something that's easy to do.
And it all depends on your definition of better. We simplify the process for them. We provide continuity, and that is better.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, we're providing services contract.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Well, thank
Thanks.
you.
And I've seen
We
the
support the
information.
good work that you do. We
And
know
I've
it
seen
is
the
not
information on
easy,
your
whether
request
it's
for a
dealing
truck. It
with
looks very reasonable.
people on the road, whether it's dealing with contractors, trying to be that intermediary. It's a tough position. And really do appreciate all your efforts.
We'll probably have many more.
Oh, I'm sure we'll be back discussing this.
I imagine.
And it's a good thing to discuss.
It is.
It's
Oh, yeah.
impactful.
No, this is a great discussion.
If in the next year or two, or let's say 10, if we're looking at a census, we increase our population again, what will we be looking at for the future? And we have to be prepared for the future.
Right, and so now pickup, if we're ready to move on.
All right.
Can we talk about that?
To our pickup.
This is much easier, I think. Maybe. Maybe.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Oh, I shouldn't have baited.
We're all trying to figure
Yeah.
out how we can buy a pickup on that.
Yeah, so the pickup, essentially there is a desire in the highway department to increase the number of the fleet by 1 3/4 ton pickup. The reason being, we have a new environmental specialist on staff, which has really stressed which is great, first of all, but has stressed the fleet, the total number of fleet, and in our engineering department in particular, we have a lot of, I don't want to call it ride sharing, but there are 4 field-based people who are sharing 3 pickups.
And all going in very different directions for projects. And what is happening is that our new specialist is taking a personal vehicle almost daily to be able to meet the work obligations. And for a little bit of perspective, I like to provide individuals with the background that I've been there almost 14 years. And in 14 years, we've been fully staffed before now, 18 months. So
Because the
fleet vehi-
SGSDs, no, I'm just kidding.
But, so our fleet was never an issue because our engineering department was the place we were not fully staffed most of this time. And now all of a sudden, we are fully staffed, and we are utilizing our engineering staff in a different way this year, as Engineer Hassas talked with you about. So rather than a couple of the techs ride sharing maybe to one project, they are each now going to different projects, and they need their engineering vehicles with all of the equipment, and that leaves the 4th person without a vehicle because our maintenance crews are already using all of the vehicles in the maintenance fleet. So it's a new problem because we're fully staffed, and we're going to be, and we're going to stay that way. I'm putting it out
And
there.
it's gonna be an easy winter.
So,
They're not the old folks.
Well, you guaranteed it.
so.
Any questions? Administrator.
Is it gonna be a Chevy or a GMC?
We have both spec'd out.
Okay.
But, the reason for a Chevy or GMC is because right now we have, almost our entire fleet is either Chevy or GMC, and all the parts are interchangeable. So our shop really the first guy we ask about what should we buy would be our shop foreman.
And also, I'm sure another question is going to be half-ton versus three-quarter ton, and that's a discussion we have with the shop foreman, and would you like to explain?
Yeah, I mean,
That's easy.
Thanks for anticipating my question.
That's easy.
yeah, and that's definitely been asked. I want to stress the price difference, just to put it in perspective. For us on state bid, it's only $3,500 difference between the two. But then in terms of capacity for doing work, you greatly increase the ability to tow. And that's almost the entire reason. And let's say we game it out and we end up in a scenario where we're towing with a half-ton pickup, then what you're doing is you're actually both endangering whoever's driving that. Because, you get in a situation where you're oh yeah, well, we have the half-ton here and we have this trailer, let's just tow it. You're endangering the person in the truck, but then also you're putting more wear and tear on the vehicle. We can certainly explore a half-ton. That's not out of the question by any means, especially if the commissioners want that. But we're aiming, at least functionally, for a three-quarter ton.
So is there something we can do as far as offset with some of the fleet vehicles here to get them a vehicle? In other words.
I would say at this point not for that purpose.
No. I'm not saying for that purpose. I'm saying, in other words, we reduce our.
We sell two or
We
three
sell
of our.
two or three of our vehicles here and just say that those are now downsized to add.
There may be an option to do that.
You see what I mean? Because that way, anyone could see, because we've had the discussion before, people watching and say, I thought you guys were getting rid of vehicles or considering,
Yeah.
right?
I
Well, this
will
might be
say-
an opportunity to, and just assess and see if there's a way to say, okay, let's give this one up to, if the need is over here. I'm not asking you to get one of the small cars for these guys. Trying to get down.
I mean, we do
to the
have some bigger trucks, but those are used on a daily basis
Correct. I know
by
that.
land services and the radio folks. One thing that I wanted to just put on the table, because I know there's a perception in the community that in the past, the highway department has bought all these new vehicles with fancy trim packages, and they're buying things they don't need. Could you talk about that, just for the record?
I can. We have done a major amount of investigation. It turns out that the chrome package that everyone thinks is so expensive is actually cheaper than, say, the black finishes.
Oh, yeah.
And
Black is so hot right now.
and we actually paid on one vehicle more to put the black on just to avoid the perception. But that's not a good reason to do it.
No.
And
but
so
you're right.
we will go with what is the more basic package, and we do try to simplify what we are buying as much as possible. I don't know if that was maybe done 10 years ago, but we are very conscientious about that and want to make sure that we are not putting anything more into the package than what we need to accomplish function.
And if there's any recommendations for changing the fleet color, please let us know so we can be more inconspicuous.
Well, in fact, Engineer Haas came up and said, well, this is kind of a nice color. And I said, yes, but is it a standard color that we can repeat year after year after year? And he looked at me and went, kind of like Killjoy. I said, we want something that's just a basic color.
And just as a, I've got a lot of information about the fleet too that we can distribute if that's helpful. But we have 14 total vehicles, passenger, truck or half-ton truck, three-quarter-ton truck, or one Tahoe. And that's that, and we have 27 drivers. So it's not a vehicle per driver, if that's the perception at all, so.
I'm sure some think that.
I know, exactly, I just want
appreciate
to.
you just putting that out there.
Yep.
Commissioner Sterling, you have a
Thank
question.
you. So I'm visualizing the trucks that you want to replace, or the A truck that you want to replace.
Not replace,
This
add.
is add.
Add
This is
to
an
it.
addition, yep.
Add to it. So then you're going to get all the equipment for the engineer to go and do his job.
Mhm.
So, but to Bob's point about like the environmentalist, could we be able to facilitate a car for running around for
She
anybody
needs
else?
four-wheel drive as well.
Well, a car is four-wheel drive.
But she's hauling sprayers and,
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
it's-
so she needs something a little bit bigger.
yes.
Yeah, and
Okay.
she's actually towing around a steaming equipment that they use to clean the mowers with as well. So she requires the same towing capacity as any other of the fleet.
So the addition then, where does it still put her?
The plan is not to buy a new vehicle and designate that to the new person.
No.
That's not what we're doing. We will put that where we would.
In theory, it's going to maintenance, and then one of the current fleet of maintenance is going to the engineering.
We'll move over to engineering.
Okay.
So that's the plan.
Move things around.
Move things
Move
around.
So if you see Robbie driving a new truck, you just say,
Yeah.
hold on.
Robbie's still in the Tahoe for the time being. Yep.
Okay. He has a rougher road though.
He
Right now,
lets us know, yep.
He has a long route at the moment. Yes.
Commissioner Hawkins. So how does, the replacement schedule, that chart that we
Yeah.
saw, how does that work as far as the budget numbers?
We will have to factor in a replacement for that in, how many years are pickups now? 20. Yes, so we will have to add that. To fund this purchase, we will use some of our cash balance so that there is no impact on the levy. We know that this is our request and that we need to be responsible for it, and then we will work that into the 20-year replacement schedule if approved. And so it will have a minimal impact on our future, yes.
And the next pickup is coming due in 2025.
Oh, okay.
So this will be the newest pickup until then.
And that is a 20-year-old pickup. It's a single cab, half-ton Chevy. Yeah, that we will be replacing in 2025. And I should have looked up the mileage. It runs daily for our mowers. It's got a fuel tank in the back, and so they're fueling their mowers with it, and it's got a lot of miles.
So do you guys normally buy gas or diesel?
Well, no, we have the tanks that the county manages.
He's asking
I'm
if they're.
saying this truck you're gonna buy.
Gas.
Gas.
Yep.
Just one.
Well, Robbie may come here to talk about Ford Lightnings at some point, but probably not
I'm
next
sure he
week.
will.
Yep.
I'm sure you will.
Most of our pickups are gas until you get to 1 ton, and then we have a combination of gas and diesel, and of course, all of our plow trucks are diesel.
That's why I
So.
was wondering.
Yep.
But it's much more economical to have the pickups run on gas.
Any final questions? Well, thank you so much. You always provide such good
Yep.
information and help our taxpayers understand purchases as well.
I hope so. Education, education, education.
Got it. All right, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it.
Did you have a question?
No, no, I just wanted to touch you for a second.
Are we?
I believe we are adjourned.
Just want to give you. So,
There you go. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah, another policy that.
Thank you for running it.
You know, you can,
Oh, okay.
all that information, everything, you
Okay.
lay out,
Thank you.
develop this stuff.
Yeah, and you know, it's really just spending time with them, so make sure they feel heard.